Dr. Vera Knox had expected many things from her mandatory Galactic Health Screening. A lecture about her caffeine intake maybe, a stern warning about humanity's alarming tendency to injure themselves in recreational activities. Perhaps even a concerned discussion about why humans seem to think that extreme sports was a reasonable category of entertainment. What she did not expect was for Dr. Krill, the station's chief medical officer, to drop his datapad and make a sound that could only be described as a squawk of existential dread. "Is there a problem?" Vera asked, sitting up on the examination table. She'd been poked, prodded, and scanned for the last hour, and frankly, she was ready to get back to her lab. Dr. Krill, an Avarian whose species had evolved from something like a parrot crossed with a flamingo, stared at his screen with all four of his eyes. His feathers had gone completely white, which Vera had learned meant he was either terrified or about to faint. Possibly both. "Problem?" he repeated, his voice climbing an octave. "Problem? Dr. Knox, I have been a physician for 37 cycles. I have treated Calorian plague victims. I have performed surgery on a Drexian during their explosive molting phase. I once removed a Plutonian tree worm from a diplomat's intestinal tract while it was still singing its mating call." "Okay, gross, but what does that have to do with me?" Dr. Krill turned his screen toward her with a trembling wing hand. "This is your genetic scan." Vera squinted at the display. It looked like every other genetic scan she'd seen, a colorful mess of data streams, and markers that meant absolutely nothing to her xenobiologist brain, which was trained for field work, not medical charts. "Looks fine to me," she said. "Fine?" Dr. Krill's crest feathers shot straight up. "Dr. Knox, do you have any idea what I'm looking at here? Do you have any idea?" "I'm going to go with no, since you're the doctor and I'm the person sitting here in a medical gown that doesn't close in the back." Dr. Krill began pacing, his talons clicking against the floor. "In your DNA, Dr. Knox, I have identified genetic markers from 7 distinct apex predator species. 7. Most sentient species have 1, maybe 2 if their planet was particularly unpleasant. But 7? 7 predators who all decided to contribute to your evolutionary heritage?" Vera blinked. "I mean, evolution's kind of a long process. Things happen." "Things happen?" Dr. Krill was definitely going to faint. "Dr. Knox, your genetic code reads like a horror anthology. You have pursuit predator traits from something called a dire wolf. Ambush predator characteristics from a creature my translator insists was called a saber-toothed cat, though I refuse to believe that's accurate because that's terrifying. There's aquatic predator DNA from what appears to be a saltwater crocodile and something called a great white shark. There are aerial predator markers from a Haast's eagle. And this is the part where I need you to tell me the scanner is broken. There are avian predator traits from something called a Velociraptor. Actually, Velociraptors were probably feathered, so you two might have a lot in common." Vera offered helpfully. Dr. Krill made a noise like a tea kettle having a nervous breakdown. "And," he continued, his voice barely a whisper, "there are trace elements from something the database identifies as Megalodon, which I'm told was an aquatic predator the size of a small spacecraft." Vera shrugged. "I mean, I can't personally vouch for the Megalodon thing. That seems like a stretch." "Dr. Knox," Dr. Krill said, steadying himself against the exam table, "I need to inform the Galactic Council immediately. This is unprecedented. You're not just a predator species. You're a predator species engineered by a committee of nightmares." "Engineered is a strong word, more like randomly assembled over millions of years." "That," Dr. Krill said, reaching for his emergency communicator, "does not make it better." Vera sighed. It was going to be one of those days. The emergency session of the Galactic Harmonious Coexistence Committee, which absolutely everyone just called the Council because that name was ridiculous, had been convened in record time. Vera stood in the center of a circular chamber, surrounded by representatives from 47 species, all of whom were staring at her like she'd just announced she ate babies for breakfast. Which, to be fair, she did eat eggs sometimes, so maybe they weren't entirely wrong to be concerned. Ambassador Threll, a Malusian whose species resembled enormous slugs with excellent posture and even better hats, oozed forward to address the assembly. "Colleagues, we are faced with an unprecedented situation. The human species, which we welcomed into our community a mere 8 cycles ago, has been revealed to possess genetic heritage from not 1, not 2, but 7 apex predator species. The chamber erupted into chaos. 47 different species all began speaking, clicking, humming, or in one case changing colors rapidly in what Vera assumed was their version of shouting. Counselor Vax, a crystalline being who looked like a chandelier, gained sentience and opinions, chimed loudly to restore order. Please, colleagues, let us approach this rationally. Ambassador Threll, what exactly are you proposing? Threll's eye stalks swiveled to focus on Vera. I propose we implement immediate protective measures. Perhaps a quarantine, a study period, or, and I'm just throwing this out there, we could politely ask them to leave the galaxy. You can't kick us out of the galaxy, Vera interjected. We live here. That, Threll said sadly, is precisely the problem. Chairman Pym, a small furry creature who looked like someone had given a teddy bear anxiety and a government position, stood on his elevated platform. Let's maintain perspective, everyone. My own species evolved alongside a predator, the great tree climber of Pym 5. Terrifying creature. Absolutely horrifying. What did it do? Vera asked. It climbed trees and ate fruit very aggressively. Vera waited for more. And that's it. But the aggression, Dr. Knox, the aggression. Counselor Vax chimed in. The crystalline collective once shared our world with the Shatterers. They would strike us with deliberate force, causing cracks in our surface structure. That sounds actually dangerous, Vera admitted. They were a species of small herbivores who occasionally bumped into us while fleeing from weather events. Vera rubbed her temples. So you're all freaking out because your predators were basically non-existent, and mine were, what, too successful? Too successful? Threll's entire body quivered with indignation. Dr. Knox, your species didn't just survive predation. You are the predation. You're what happens when a planet looks at the food chain and decides one species should just win the whole thing. We didn't decide anything. Evolution decided. We just showed up. With 7 predators worth of hunting adaptations. Vera was about to respond when Dr. Krill entered the chamber, dragging a holographic display behind him. If I may, honored council members, I've prepared a presentation. Oh, good, Vera muttered. A PowerPoint about why I'm terrifying. This day just keeps getting better. Dr. Krill activated the display, and a 3-dimensional model of a human appeared, slowly rotating. What you see here is a standard human. Note the binocular vision, positioned at the front of the skull for depth perception and tracking prey. Note the bipedal stance, freeing the upper limbs for tool use and grappling. Note the musculature, designed for sustained pursuit rather than ambush. We also use our legs for walking, Vera offered. Very practical. Dr. Krill ignored her. Humans possess an adaptation that none of us have encountered before, something called persistence hunting. He paused for dramatic effect. They simply chase their prey until it dies of exhaustion. The chamber went absolutely silent. They what? Chairman Pym squeaked. They run after it, Dr. Krill continued, clearly enjoying this now. For hours, sometimes days. The prey runs, the human follows, the prey runs faster. The human maintains pace. The prey eventually collapses from heat exhaustion or cardiac failure, and then the human, who is somehow still running, simply walks up and kills it. That's the most disturbing thing I've ever heard, Counselor Vax chimed quietly. We also invented agriculture, Vera said hopefully. Very peaceful. Lots of wheat. Nobody seemed to hear her. Dr. Krill was really hitting his stride now, which was unfortunate for Vera's dignity and mental health. The holographic display had shifted to show various extinct Earth predators, each one apparently more horrifying than the last, to the assembled council members. Let us begin with the aquatic predators, Dr. Krill announced, pulling up an image of a great white shark. This creature, which humans casually refer to as a great white shark, as if the color white somehow makes it less threatening, was one of Earth's most efficient marine hunters. It could detect a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's actually a myth, Vera interjected. They can smell blood from pretty far away, but not quite that far. Oh, well then, my apologies, Dr. Knox. I suppose we can all relax knowing that the massive creature with rows of serrated teeth could only smell blood from a merely impressive distance rather than an impossible one. Vera decided to stop being helpful. The image shifted to a saltwater crocodile. This is a saltwater crocodile, which holds the distinction of having the strongest bite force of any animal in Earth's modern era. It would wait, submerged sometimes for days until prey came within striking distance. Then it would explode from the water with enough force to drag creatures many times its size into the depths. Chairman Pym had his paws over his eyes. Make it stop. Oh, we're just getting started, Dr. Krill said cheerfully. He was definitely enjoying this. Moving to terrestrial predators, we have the saber-toothed cat, which had canine teeth up to 11 inches long, specifically designed for delivering killing bites to large prey. They were probably pretty slow though, right? Ambassador Threll asked hopefully. Reasonably fast, Vera admitted, but they mainly ambushed prey, so speed wasn't really their thing. Oh, well, ambush predators. That's so much better. Dr. Krill continued. Then we have the dire wolf, which hunted in coordinated packs, using complex social structures and communication to bring down prey much larger than individual pack members. They worked in teams? Counselor Vax's crystalline structure was vibrating with stress. Why would predators need teamwork? To kill things more efficiently, Vera said. Obviously. The image shifted again, this time to a massive eagle. The Haast's eagle of New Zealand was the largest eagle to ever exist, with a wingspan of nearly 3 meters. It would dive from the sky at speeds exceeding 80 kilometers per hour, striking prey with enough force to crush bone. Things flew at prey and crushed their bones. Chairman Pym whimpered. Why? Why would evolution do that? And now, Dr. Krill said, his voice dropping dramatically, we come to the Velociraptors. Small, relatively speaking, but they hunted in packs, possessed killing claws on their hind legs, and had cognitive abilities that suggest problem-solving and tactical thinking. They were probably about as smart as chickens, Vera offered. Your planet's predators were as smart as modern birds. Threll looked like he was about to pass out. Birds can solve puzzles. Birds use tools. Birds remember faces. I mean, yeah, birds are pretty smart. It's not their fault you all evolved from prey species and have this weird bias. Dr. Krill saved the best for last. And finally, though only trace elements remain in human DNA, we have the Megalodon, a shark that grew up to 18 meters in length, with teeth the size of a human hand, and a bite force 3 times that of a Tyrannosaurus rex. Okay, that one's genuinely terrifying, Vera admitted. But to be fair, we didn't live alongside that one. The Megalodon died out way before humans showed up. It died out, Dr. Krill said, because Earth's oceans apparently decided there were limits to how nightmarish a predator could be. Even your planet's ecosystem gave up on that one, Counselor Vax chimed softly. Dr. Knox, help us understand. How does one species end up with genetic markers from all of these creatures? Vera sighed. It's not like we collected them like trading cards. This is just what happened when you have a highly competitive environment and a species that kept adapting. We inherited traits from various branches of our evolutionary tree. The pursuit endurance from wolf ancestors. The grasping hands from primate ancestors who dealt with big cats. The pattern recognition and spatial awareness from dealing with aerial predators. We're not monsters. We're just survivors who got really, really good at surviving. By becoming the thing everything else had to survive, Threll said quietly. I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds bad. Chairman Pym raised a paw tentatively. Dr. Knox, I have one question, and please answer honestly. Sure. Do you humans actually drink something called coffee that contains a substance poisonous to most other species, purely because it makes you more alert? Yes, but that's unrelated to the predator thing. Is it though? Pym's voice cracked. Is it? Before Vera could answer, the station's emergency alarm began blaring. A digitized voice echoed through the chamber. Alert. Unauthorized vessels approaching. Kresh raiding party detected. All personnel to emergency stations. Ambassador Threll's eye stalks drooped. Oh no, the Kresh. Who are the Kresh? Vera asked. Counselor Vax dimmed significantly. They're actual predators, Dr. Knox. Real ones. Not extinct ones living in your DNA. They're insectoid raiders who prey on peaceful civilizations. Vera felt something shift in her chest. That old familiar feeling. The one her therapist back on Earth had called inappropriate excitement in the face of danger, but which she preferred to think of as situational enthusiasm. "Well," she said, cracking her knuckles, "I guess we're about to find out if 7 dead predators are better than 1 living one." The Kresh breached the station's outer hull approximately 4 minutes after the alarm started, which Vera thought showed either impressive efficiency or terrible security on the station's part. Possibly both. She'd been escorted, along with the panicking council members, toward the emergency evacuation pods when the first group of raiders scuttled into the corridor. And scuttled was definitely the right word. The Kresh looked like someone had taken a praying mantis, a scorpion, and a particularly aggressive centipede, thrown them in a blender, and given the result weapons and a bad attitude. They were also about 7 feet tall and covered in chitinous armor that gleamed under the station as emergency lighting. The Avarian security guards, all 3 of them, immediately fainted. "Okay," Vera said, watching the Kresh advance with their weird clicking, skittering gait. "That's not ideal." Ambassador Threll tried to hide behind her, which was impressive given that he was essentially a slug the size of a refrigerator. "Dr. Knox, please do not engage them. Kresh are apex predators. They're extremely dangerous." "Yeah, I'm getting that impression." One of the Kresh, presumably the leader based on the extra spikes on its carapace, pointed a bladed limb at the group. It made a sound like grinding metal crossed with an angry wasp's nest. Vera's translator implant struggled for a moment before rendering it as, "Surrender. You are prey. Resistance means pain." Something in Vera's brain, some ancient subroutine written in genetic code by 7 different predators who'd all been really good at their jobs, clicked on. "Hey," she said, stepping forward. "How about no?" The Kresh leader tilted its triangular head, mandibles clicking in what might have been confusion. "You stand forward, you challenge." "I mean, I wouldn't call it a challenge. More like a really aggressive disagreement." Before the Kresh could respond, another human voice called out from down the corridor. "Dr. Knox? That you?" Vera turned to see Lieutenant Jake Moss, the station's human security officer, jogging toward them with what appeared to be a fire extinguisher and a length of pipe. He was a broad-shouldered guy from somewhere in Texas, with the kind of face that suggested he'd been in plenty of bar fights and won most of them. "Lieutenant Moss," Vera said. "Good timing. We've got bugs." "I can see that," Jake said, eyeing the Kresh with the expression of someone trying to decide the best way to hit something. "Big bugs." The Kresh leader's mandibles spread wide, revealing additional mouth parts that definitely didn't need to exist. "2 humans. Interesting. We have heard stories. Pursuit primates from Death World classification. We shall test these stories." "Death World?" Vera looked at Ambassador Threll. "Earth is classified as a death world." "We were trying to be diplomatic about it," Threll whispered. "Your planet," the Kresh leader continued, "has more species that can kill you than species that cannot. Your weather is violent, your oceans are hostile, your plants are often poisonous, you evolved in nightmare conditions." "Well, when you list it out like that," Vera started. Jake cut her off. "Are we going to talk about Earth's Yelp review, or are we doing this?" the Kresh charged. What happened next would later be described by council members as the most disturbing display of controlled violence they had ever witnessed. Jake swung the pipe in a wide arc, forcing 2 Kresh to rear back. Vera grabbed the fire extinguisher, sprayed it directly into the leader's face, then used it as a club when the creature recoiled. "Left!" Jake shouted. Vera ducked. A bladed limb whistled over her head. "Right!" Vera returned. Jake sidestepped. A Kresh crashed into the wall where he'd been standing. They didn't plan this coordination. They didn't need to. Pack tactics were written into their DNA by dire wolves. Spatial awareness came courtesy of primates dodging saber-toothed cats. The sheer audacity of running toward threats instead of away from them. That was pure human persistence predator programming. A Kresh lunged at Vera. She threw the empty extinguisher at its face, grabbed a fallen pipe, and jabbed it into the gap in the creature's armor near its thorax. The Kresh made a sound like a shriek crossed with a scream and skittered backward. "They've got weak points in the joints," Vera yelled. "Thanks, Discovery Channel." Jake slammed his pipe into another Kresh's leg joint. It buckled. The Kresh leader, recovering from the fire extinguisher foam in its eyes, made a series of rapid clicking sounds. The other raiders responded immediately, forming a defensive circle. "They're regrouping," Vera panted. "That's not good." "Or," Jake said, breathing hard but grinning like a maniac, "we're winning and they're scared." The Kresh leader's translator crackled. "You fight like predators, true predators, not prey that learned defense, actual hunters." "I'm a xenobiologist," Vera said. "He's a security guard. We're actually pretty low on the human dangerous scale." This information did not seem to comfort the Kresh leader. "Your kind," it clicked slowly. "They are all like this? I mean, Jake's probably more fighty than most. But yeah, generally speaking, we don't back down from—" The Kresh were already retreating, all of them, moving backward down the corridor with their weapons still raised, but their posture completely changed from aggressive to defensive. "Wait, are you leaving?" Vera called after them. The leader paused at the corridor junction. "We raid prey. We do not invade hunter nests. There is no profit in fighting pursuit predators on their territory." And then they were gone, scuttling back toward their breach point with impressive speed. Jake looked at his pipe, then at Vera. "Did we just win a fight by being human?" "I think," Vera said, "we won a fight by making them realize we were human." Ambassador Threll slowly emerged from behind a support column, his eye stalks trembling. "That was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen, and I've witnessed a Drexian molt." "We just defended the station," Vera protested. "You chased them," Threll said. "They were retreating and you kept advancing. That's not defense. That's pursuit. That's predator behavior." Vera and Jake exchanged glances. "Huh," Jake said. "Guess he's got a point." The station's command center had become an impromptu war room, filled with council members who were still processing what they'd witnessed. Security feeds played on repeat, showing the encounter between two humans and a Kresh raiding party. Every replay made the assembled aliens look more disturbed. "I would like to note," Counselor Vax chimed, their crystalline structure still vibrating with anxiety, "that at no point in that altercation did either human show signs of fear. Not once." "We were definitely scared," Vera said. She'd been given a chair, water, and approximately 40 different species staring at her. "Fear's a normal human response. Your physical indicators suggested elevated heart rate and adrenaline response," Dr. Krill said, consulting his medical scanner. "But you advanced toward the threat anyway. You didn't freeze. You didn't flee. You fought. And then kept fighting," Chairman Pym added quietly, "even when they tried to retreat." Jake, who'd been leaning against the wall trying to look casual despite having just fought off space monsters with a pipe, shrugged. "Can't let them think they can just show up and push people around. That's how you get more raids." "That is predator logic," Ambassador Threll said. "Defending territory, establishing dominance. These are not prey species behaviors." "With respect, Ambassador," Vera said, her patience wearing thin. "Maybe if more species thought like predators, the Kresh wouldn't be such a problem." The room went silent. Counselor Vax chimed softly. "She's not wrong." "Of course she's not wrong." Threll's eye stalks waved in agitation. "Predator thinking works. That's why predators are terrifying. They're effective." "The Kresh are broadcasting warnings," a station officer announced, checking his communications panel. He was a Tenteran, which meant he had approximately 12 tentacles and looked like an octopus that had evolved for office work. "They're telling other raiders to avoid this station. They're calling us—" My translator is having trouble with this phrase. "Nest of the pursuit primates." "They think we're all here?" Jake asked. "I believe they're assuming any station that houses humans is now a strategic threat." Vera felt a smile tugging at her lips. "So we accidentally became the galaxy's scarecrow? More like the galaxy's apex predator," Dr. Krill muttered. Chairman Pym raised a paw tentatively. "Perhaps we've been approaching this incorrectly. We've been treating humanity's predator heritage as a problem to solve. But what if it's a solution?" "A solution to what?" Threll asked. To the fact that the Kresh and species like them have been raiding peaceful civilizations for decades because we have no effective defense. We're prey species who built space stations and thought that made us safe. But prey species don't stop being prey just because they invent technology. Councillor Vax chimed in agreement. The chairman raises a valid point. The Galactic Council has been operating under the assumption that civilization means peace. But peace requires the ability to defend it. And you want humans to do that defending, Vera said, understanding dawning. You want us to be your attack dogs. Not attack dogs, Pym said quickly. Partners, defenders. Look, Dr. Knox, I'm not going to pretend we weren't terrified when we learned about your species' heritage. We were. We still are, honestly. But watching you and Lieutenant Moss face down that Kresh raiding party, I realized something. You didn't fight because you enjoy violence. You fought because you couldn't stand by and let people get hurt. That's just being decent, Jake said. To you, perhaps. To us, it's extraordinary. Most species flee danger. Some freeze. You run toward it. That's not just predator instinct. That's protective instinct. Vera exchanged a look with Jake. What exactly are you proposing? Ambassador Threll, who'd been quiet during this exchange, oozed forward. The Galactic Council would like to formally request that humanity join a newly formed Galactic Defense Initiative. We need advisors who understand conflict, trainers who can teach peaceful species how to defend themselves, and yes, when necessary, protectors who can face threats that we simply cannot. You want us to teach you how to fight, Vera said. We want you to teach us how to survive, Pym corrected. There's a difference. Vera looked at Jake. He raised an eyebrow. 7 dead predators in your DNA. Might as well put them to use. This is insane, Vera said. But she was already considering it. Already thinking about the possibilities. Already feeling that old human urge to fix problems, especially problems that involved protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Dr. Knox, Councillor Vax chimed gently, your species didn't ask to be born from predators, but you were. And rather than hide that heritage or apologize for it, you can use it to help preserve life instead of take it. Isn't that the most human thing possible? Taking something meant for hunting and using it for protecting? Damn it. The crystalline bureaucrat had a point. Fine, Vera said. But we're doing this on our terms. No quarantines. No treating us like we're dangerous animals. We're partners. Or we're nothing. Agreed, Pym said immediately. Though I would like to note that you are dangerous. We're just choosing to be grateful for it instead of terrified. Why not both? Threll muttered. 3 weeks later, Vera stood in the station's newly established training facility, watching Ambassador Threll attempt what humans called a basic self-defense stance. He was not succeeding, mostly because he was a slug and the concept of weight distribution was apparently very different when you were essentially one giant foot. No, Vera said, trying not to laugh. You want to present as large as possible. Make yourself look threatening. Threll puffed up his mantle. Like this? You look like you're trying to mate, not fight. Those are the same gesture for my species. That explains so much about Malusian diplomacy. Across the room, Jake was teaching a group of Avarians how to use their natural advantages in combat. Turns out, bird people could be surprisingly vicious when properly motivated, and their hollow bones made them faster than most species expected. Remember, Jake called out, you're not trying to win a fight. You're trying to make the other guy regret starting one. Dr. Krill, who'd been observing the training sessions with scientific fascination, approached Vera with his data pad. I've been analyzing the psychological impact of human presence on station crime rates. They've dropped 73% since the Kresh incident. Because everyone's scared of us? No, because the Kresh broadcast their warning across half the sector. Every would-be raider now thinks this station is a pursuit primate nest. We've become the galactic equivalent of a house with a very large, very angry dog. Woof, Vera said dryly. I also wanted to apologize. Dr. Krill continued, his feathers ruffling with what Vera had learned was embarrassment. For my initial reaction to your genetic scan, I treated you like a monster when I should have seen you as what you actually are. Which is? A person whose ancestors had to be very, very good at surviving. That's not monstrous. It's admirable. Vera felt something warm in her chest. Thanks, Doc. That actually means a lot. Chairman Pym entered the training facility, followed by several other council members. Dr. Knox, Lieutenant Moss, if we could have a moment. The training session paused. Everyone gathered around the chairman, who, despite his teddy bear appearance, had proven to be surprisingly pragmatic and competent at his job. The council has been reviewing the defense initiative's progress, Pym began. We're impressed. 6 stations have requested human advisors. 14 species have signed up for defense training. The Kresh have avoided council space entirely for 3 weeks. That's good news, Jake said. It is, but it's also raised questions, specifically about humans in general. Pym pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. We've been learning more about your planet, your history, your cultures, and we've discovered something fascinating. That we're all crazy, Vera offered. That you're diverse, Pym corrected. Your species has hundreds of cultures, thousands of languages, countless different approaches to life. You fight each other, yes, but you also cooperate on a scale we rarely see. You're individuals who form collectives, predators who protect the weak, warriors who value peace. Your contradictions, Counselor Vax chimed, and that might be your greatest strength. Ambassador Threll oozed forward. What the chairman is trying to say, Dr. Knox, is that we were wrong. About humans. About what it means to be a predator species. We thought you'd be dangerous to us. We didn't realize you'd be dangerous for us. We're inviting more humans to join the galactic community, Pym said. Scientists, engineers, teachers, yes, but also soldiers, strategists, and protectors. We need your perspective, your experience with conflict and survival. We need you to teach us how to be less like prey. Vera felt the weight of that request. 7 predators long dead, living on in her DNA. 7 different ways of hunting, surviving, thriving in a world that wanted to eat you. And now, the galaxy wanted to learn those lessons. There's something you should know, she said carefully. Humans aren't just predators. We're also incredibly petty, stubborn, and spiteful. We'll do things purely because someone said we couldn't. We'll survive out of pure spite sometimes. We're aware, Pym said. We've read your history. You fought wars over lines on maps, different interpretations of religious texts, and on one memorable occasion, a bucket. The War of the Bucket was actually about political control, Vera protested. The bucket was just symbolic. You still went to war over a bucket, Threll said. This is both horrifying and oddly reassuring. How is that reassuring? Because it means you're not perfect predators. You're flawed, occasionally irrational, and deeply weird. That makes you people, not monsters. Jake laughed. That might be the nicest thing anyone said about humanity in weeks. Dr. Krill stepped forward, holding his scanner. I have one final question, Dr. Knox, if you don't mind. Sure, what? Are there any other terrifying evolutionary advantages you possess that we should know about? I'd like to avoid future cardiac events if possible. Vera thought about it. Well, there's the opposable thumbs. They're pretty useful for tool manipulation. We knew about the thumbs. We can digest caffeine, alcohol, and capsaicin, all of which are technically poisons. We learned that the hard way when we tried to share drinks. Oh, and we're persistence predators, which means we can maintain moderate physical activity for hours or even days without stopping. We can also sweat, which is a cooling system that lets us outlast pretty much any other species in sustained activity. The council members stared at her. You can sweat poison out of your system and just keep going? Pym asked weakly. I mean, that's not exactly how sweating works, but kind of. Your species, Vax said slowly, is essentially a Terminator. Oh, what? Never mind. Human pop culture reference. We've been studying. Ambassador Threll made a sound like a sigh crossed with existential resignation. Of course you can just keep going. Why wouldn't you be able to just keep going? That's perfectly normal for pursuit predators who don't know when to quit. Hey, Vera said, grinning now. You're the ones who asked us to join the galactic community. Little late to back out now. We're not backing out, Pym said firmly. We're adapting, learning, and yes, being appropriately terrified while doing so. But that's growth. Jake raised his hand. So what's our official title in this defense initiative? I feel like we should have name tags or something. How about friends? Pym suggested. Vera felt that warmth in her chest again. 7 predators long dead, living on in her DNA, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a monster for carrying them. She felt like what they'd always been meant to be, survivors who chose to protect instead of prey upon, hunters who'd learned to guard the herd. Friends works, she said softly. Friends works just fine. Threll made a pleased burbling sound. Excellent. Now, Dr. Knox, could you please explain again why I can't simply secrete a defensive slime when threatened? It seems much more practical than these stance things. Because, Vera said patiently, the slime takes 3 hours to regenerate and works exactly once before everyone knows to bring towels. You're saying I need a backup plan. I'm saying everyone needs a backup plan. That's kind of the whole point. Dr. Krill was already typing frantically on his datapad. Fascinating. Humans even apply redundancy to personal defense strategies. Your species really does plan for everything to go wrong, doesn't it? Not everything, Jake said cheerfully. Just the most likely disasters. You'd be surprised how short that list actually is. How short? Everything from mild inconvenience to extinction-level event. We like to be thorough. Counselor Vax made a sound that might have been laughter. You know what? I'm beginning to understand why your species managed to dominate your entire planet. You're not just survivors. You're professionally paranoid optimists. That's the nicest way anyone's ever described human anxiety, Vera said. Chairman Pym clapped his small hands together. Well then, friends, shall we continue? I believe Lieutenant Moss was about to teach the advanced class something called situational awareness, also known as how to not get eaten, Jake added helpfully. We prefer not to phrase it that way, Pym said quickly, glancing at the dozen prey species gathered nervously in the training area. But yes, essentially that. As the council members dispersed and training resumed, Vera caught her reflection in the facility's observation window. Same face, same eyes, same genetic legacy of predators long extinct. But now she saw what Dr. Krill had seen, what the council was beginning to understand. She wasn't a monster. She was a teacher, a protector, a bridge between 2 different ways of seeing the universe. And maybe, just maybe, that made all the difference. Hey, Vera, Jake called out. Stop being philosophical and help me explain to the hexapods why shoot first, ask questions later is actually terrible advice. Coming, she called back. 7 predators long dead, living on in her DNA. And for the first time in galactic history, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Later that evening, Vera sat in the station's observation deck, watching ships come and go through the docking bays. Earth was visible as a pale blue dot in the distance. Home, but somehow less lonely now. Dr. Krill found her there, carrying 2 containers of what passed for coffee in this part of the galaxy. It wasn't good, but it was drinkable, which by human standards meant it was acceptable. Thought you might want some company, he said, settling beside her. Thanks, Doc. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars. Can I ask you something? Krill said finally. Sure. When you first learned about your genetic legacy, the 7 predators, were you scared of what it meant about you? Vera considered the question. Terrified, she admitted. I thought it made me a monster, something dangerous that had to be controlled. And now? Now I think it just makes me human. We're all carrying the legacy of everything that came before us. The question isn't what we're made of, it's what we choose to do with it. Krill's feathers ruffled in what she'd learned was his version of a smile. For a pursuit predator, you're remarkably philosophical. We have to be. When you're built to chase things down until they give up or die, you need to have a really good reason for doing it. Otherwise, you're just a monster with good endurance. And what's your reason, Dr. Knox? Vera thought about the station, the training facility, the dozens of species learning to defend themselves. She thought about Ambassador Threll attempting self-defense stances, and Chairman Pym's teddy bear determination, and all the prey species who'd spent millions of years running from things like her. Because someone has to teach them how to stop running, she said quietly. And maybe Just maybe, humans are uniquely qualified for the job. Because you're predators? Because we're predators who learned to be people first. We hunted, yes, but we also built civilizations, created art, wrote poetry, and figured out how to live together despite every evolutionary instinct telling us to compete. If we can do that, maybe we can teach the galaxy how to do it too. Dr. Krill was quiet for a long moment. Then he raised his container in a toast. To humanity, then. May you be exactly as terrifying as the galaxy needs you to be. Vera clinked her container against his. And may the galaxy learn to be a little less terrifying in return. Unlikely, but appreciated. They sat together, watching the stars, as the first transport carrying additional human volunteers approached the station. Teachers, engineers, soldiers, diplomats, all of them carrying the same 7 predators in their DNA, all of them choosing what to do with that legacy. The galaxy was about to get a lot more interesting, and Vera Knox, xenobiologist and accidental ambassador for humanity, couldn't wait to see what happened next. After all, persistence predators were very, very good at playing the long game, and the game had only just begun.